Hello, and welcome to this is lesson 3 in learning to love your shadow. I am Soul Coach Michelle. I am your teacher, facilitator, and friendly neighborhood super woo for this lesson. Um, and I'm really excited to talk about today's lesson. So, to recap, lesson 1 was what is your shadow? And as you could tell, if you haven't watched the video, go watch the video. But lesson 1 talks all about what your shadow is, which is part of you. So, all of this talk about trying to carve it up and carve it out and squash it or ignore it or whatever is really not healthy. And because it's if we're going to nourish and love ourselves, we got to nourish and love all of ourselves. So that's lesson 1. Lesson 2 was where did it come from? And usually it came from well meeting people in our lives since we were little bitty to even yesterday telling us things that are keeping us small. And then today we're going to talk about doing the shadow work and my perspective on it versus, a lot of other folks. And like I said yesterday, there's again the types of trauma that and the types of people to work with for those types of trauma regarding your shadow work. So as I said yesterday, I want to differentiate in the kinds of trauma, but by doing so, I'm not diminishing anyone's life experience. But I do want to be really clear again. There's big T trauma, little t trauma. To me, big T trauma is abuse, assault, um, witnessing horrific and traumatic things, stuff that might cause PTSD, stuff like this. That kind of shadow work, yes, go and find yourself a licensed therapist, whether they be a social worker or a psychologist or a counselor of some kind. That's the person you need to be talking to. The kind of shadow work that I help facilitate in people is what I call little t trauma, which is more trauma that everyone really goes through. That is more about when you're coming up in the world, whether you're 3 or 30 or 13, having people tell you what they think you should be doing. And then having, because at that moment in time, maybe we're vulnerable, questioning whether or not we should be doing something. I like it, but I'm not sure if anyone else would like it. And then having someone voice put a voice to that itty bitty shitty committee, and then we hide that gem that really is your authentic self. Like I remember as a kid, telling people I wanted to be a musician, and somebody saying to me, Nobody does that for a living. I mean, only 20% of people are going to do that. And what makes you think you're going to be that 20%?" And at 13, I was like, oh, and I still said yes or to certain things, but there was always this pullback all the way around. And so until I kind of worked through that, and now I just show up like this, because it was more about showing up. Oh, hey, Sharon, how are you? If you're here, go ahead and say hello in the this is the comment section. There's live stream comments and there's comments below. So if you're watching live, make sure you say hello. If you have a question, even if you're watching live or you're watching the replay and you forget to share or ask, do hashtag replay and I'll come back and answer it when we're done. So today we're going to talk about my approach to shadow work, which I like to call fun and fascinating because I love when stuff happens. You know how people will say, "Oh, I need to say," instead of going, "Ow," or "Eh," or "I don't like that." Maybe instead saying, "Well, that's interesting," or "That feels challenging," instead of like attaching like a low vibrational thing. So fascinating is kind of one of the things I like to say when you've come up against something that's interesting or you're kind of like, "Huh, I don't know what to do with that just yet." But I also call it fun because there's an if we can approach everything instead of like the way most shadow work is marketed these days, which is a lot of scariness and stuff you have to do to get past the shit in your life, and it's not going to be easy and it's going to be awful and it doesn't feel good, but you got to do it. Like if someone opened a carton of milk and said, "God, this smells like it's terrible, it's totally gone off or whatever, here, you smell this," would you want to smell it? No. So to me, first of all, that kind of stuff, putting stuff out there like that doesn't make me want to do it. And I've had clients tell me that they were off put by that too. And so I want to say that's not what I do here. That's number one. Number two, I kind of really like the understanding that when we go at this, since our shadow kind of sits in a closet, in our shadow closet, to me, that's kind of where it resides in your unconscious or your subconscious. It's not really in your conscious mind. You know it's there, but dealing with it can, your conscious mind can put up a block because your shadow is wanting to protect you. Because there's a reason we put some stuff in the shadow closet. And our mind versus, say, our heart is saying, we don't open that door because when stuff comes out of there, people don't like us, or people will think we're weird or whatever. Or what if they don't like my work? Stuff like this. So consciously trying to, if you've gone on Pinterest or other sites and they're like, here's 30 questions you can ask yourself to start your shadow work. And all of the questions, and like I had some pulled up here that I was like, really? That is not going to help. And I'll tell you why. So there's some questions here, and I'm looking at a website. It says 27 shadow work prompts to kickstart your healing journey. And these are really great. Were they being facilitated by someone with you? But when you're trying to do stuff on your own, stuff like, let's see, what tends to make you judgmental towards others? Coming right out and asking consciously, unless you're at that space where you're like, I'm going to be really honest with myself here. You might think that what might pop up is your shadow might pop up and say, judgment is bad. So my answer to that question is going to be, I'm not judgmental towards other. I love everybody. And that's not really an honest answer. It might be, but is it always? Not really. Because if you say that and then you're driving down the street and you pull into like your grocery store and someone takes your parking spot, unless you are truly that non-judgmental person, you're not going to be like, you jackwagon, you took my spot, which is judgmental. You just called them a jackwagon. You just said they took your spot. Well, that really wasn't your spot, and who knows if they're a jackwagon. So really kind of understanding that when we do stuff like this, and there's other things like, what memories are you ashamed of? You might not be able to recall them from your conscious mind because the shadow is there blocking you. And you might be like, you know what, my childhood was really awesome. I don't really have any memories that I'm ashamed of. Because when we're on our own, that's the whole reason we got here, is we were on our own. And when we're on our own, we tend not to be accountable to ourselves. We might like the idea. We love the idea of creating new and healthy habits. We love the idea of transformation. But I can tell you, like even coaches like me need coaches. I have a coach to help me stay on track as I am transforming myself and working through my stuff. And she's helps facilitate that kind of stuff, because if on my own, unless I'm feeling really really okay with being self vulnerable and really honest and not going to allow that shadowy stuff to kind of creep in and put a block there so that I keep myself safe from thinking judgmental self judgmental thoughts or having thoughts about, what memories are you ashamed of? Can we do that without judging ourselves, blaming ourselves, shaming ourselves, especially if you're talking about shame and then you're on your own? It keeps us from doing that. So, doing these kinds of things on our own can be really challenging. Because the other part of this is tips for starting your shadow work. Keep an open mind, practice self compassion, be patient with yourself. These are all things that our shadow can sometimes jeopardize within us, especially when we're left in our own bell jar. So, that's the reason why I teach shadow work a little bit differently. So, when I talk about doing shadow work, is I try to make it in a way that your conscious mind, we kind of do pull, a little ninja move on the conscious mind, because the conscious mind is where the overt stuff is, where it's like, okay, well, if I'm not supposed to feel shame because shame is bad, but I do feel shame. I have a block there. So if I'm ashamed of something, I'm going to talk about it because that would be awful. And that's what we shove that in the shadow closet. And our conscious mind wants to keep it in there because that's where it's safe. That's where I'm safe. I don't have to deal with any of this stuff. Okay. And so what we try to do is kind of let our conscious mind take a back seat for a minute, because all the stuff in the closet is in the subconscious and the unconscious mind. And in my perspective, it's also in the ethers. So since I am spiritual, practical, and no bullshit, that's where I work with this stuff. Like I said, on the smaller stuff, keeping us stuck. So it might be those conversations from your youth. It might be a conversation from a professional mentor, or somebody else that you, through their lens of fear, has occupied your shadow closet with stuff that's keeping you stuck. And the way that we get to that stuff, in my perspective, is what I like to call journey meditations. And I prefer those over these list of questions and starting tips and all this kind of stuff of how to kind of, like implementing the shadow work for your well being, which is true. I think that is all very true. How you approach it is going to really just be the deciding factor of if it works for you or not. And so the reason I prefer journeying, like meditation journeys, versus like these lists of questions and homework to do and journaling and stuff like that is because a lot of the people that I work with, and this might be you, are analytically minded. And usually that's because we attract that which we are. And I have been an analytically minded woo woo for my whole life. I mean, I'm right up there for the, astrology speaking. I'm a Virgo sun, Pisces moon. So I'm all like warm and squishy and intuitive under my moon. Sun is all like Mr. Spock. And then Capricorn, which is very, again, earth sign, go do the work and go home. So it's like data driven work. And then in the middle is like this la 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 la. So that's why I say spiritual, practical, and no bullshit. That's like sun, moon, and rising. And to bypass that analytical mind that, will a lot of times overthink, overtalk, overanalyze, and even create more blocks than were originally there. I teach meditation journeying from a place of my Pisces moon, which I love. And it is what is meditation journey? So there's guided meditations, which are like, we go on Insight Timer, for instance, and you have meditations that will, like, relax your body and stuff like that. I like to call mine journey meditations. And there's meditations that are just music or quiet. I mean, you can do transcendental meditations, all kinds of meditation. I like to call mine meditation journeys because they are a guided meditation with a specific journey in mind. And like when I do the Akashic Records journey, we journey to the Akashic Records. In this particular journey, in the circle that I'm going to be leading, it'll be a 3 month, 9 Zoom session um, cohort, I guess, or a group of people, a closed group. So once I close registration, there's no like people can roll in and out kind of a thing. Um, and the focus will be basically we go in, we meet your light guide because you have guides for everything. So your light worker guide, because light workers break the darkness, and your shadow guide. And we learn to love both of them. The conversation that gets started supports you in not, trying to be like, okay, where is all this stuff that's wrong with me that I have to fix? It's more about you learning to trust your intuition, to trust your guides, to trust yourself again, which I think is a big detriment that, like, the stuff that having a shadow does to us. It kind of shakes our confidence in a lot of areas. And so I think giving you back that confidence in your intuition through these meditation journeys, where we go and we visit with our guides, and commune with our guides in a specific area, such as our shadow work, I think that's what kind of helps. So what has happened in the past is we'll go in and we'll meet, your light guide, because that's your guide that's going to be with you holding your hand so you don't feel afraid. And I will say this, the very first time people meet their shadow or see something that is, uncomfortable, it can be a little disconcerting, which is why your light guide is there. Not only are you there with a circle of other women who are doing the same individual journey while you're doing yours. So you're not alone in that respect. You're not alone because I'm facilitating this, and you're not alone because while you're in your personal journey, your light guide is there with you, holding your hand, kind of having a conversation. Then we take you and your light guide and you go and you meet your shadow guide. And once you get comfortable there, we start conversations. And in another meditation journey, we might, instead of going through this list of questions and being like, aha, it's question number 7, where we think you have, no, all of this, when we do meditation journey, is through your intuition with you working with your guides so that you can be in charge because, we all have free will, we all have self directedness, but your inner higher self, your guides, and all of them know which part of your shadow work is the one that needs to be worked on right now, the one that is maybe in the way of you doing whatever it is you want to do right now. So we talk to the shadow with your light worker right there holding your hand and ask it, say, because like I said before, when a shadow is like a screaming child, if you don't listen to why it's upset, it just gets louder and louder. And sometimes we get triggered like that because it's so loud and we burst out at people we love. And it's not because of anything they said or did, it's because we have been carrying around this thing in our shadow closet for so long. And instead of doing that, where we're repressing, 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 what we're going to do is talk to the shadow and say, what right now? What is the thing you need to tell me that I need to do and to work on? And then they tell you, they might not tell you like you and I are speaking now. It might be a color, a sound, like a visual. It might be a feeling. You never know. But then once you come back into the group, what happens is we talk about what are the spiritual meanings of the things you saw? What do they mean for you? It's almost like dream analysis, but you were on a meditation journey. So you were conscious, but you were in your unconscious or your subconscious while you're doing this with all of your guides. So it all has meaning. Nothing is wasted in this space. So we connect with the guides, we interpret and walk through what they shared. And then once that kind of stuff happens, you can go in again and ask, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, what do I need to do to release this? And some of the things we might do are clearing statements, other energy work, um, energy protocols like the rain protocol or embodiment protocols or shamanic practices, which I love, where we just talk to our body and we communicate with our body, we communicate with the spirit, we communicate with what's going on, like where do I feel this crunchiness around this thing in my body, and I talk to that. Where can my shadow stand next to me and be the translator for that? Like there's all this stuff that we do, and I think that that's a much different way to navigate shadow work than these kind of like conversations of question and answer around conscious when we're in our conscious mind, because that's what gets in the way. And that's why I really like this energetic meditation journey approach, because it puts folks in a space that feels so much better and much more in control and much more and much safer, honestly, because you're not like, shit, what beach ball is going to pop up in this conversation that I'm having, and do I feel okay? Because we want to build our trust factor and our knowing, and with the guides that are going to be there with you, with the circle of women that'll be there with you, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of thing that I like to do. Now, can you do this on your own? Of course you can. Of course you can. Um, why I prefer it in a group setting is for accountability, for being able to have conversation around meanings, like if someone else gets an intuitive hit around something for you, that kind of stuff. But doing it on your own, yeah, of course you can. You can, do some guided, you can find some guided meditations to help you talk to your shadow. You can do all that kind of stuff if that's your jam. But I highly recommend having a group with a facilitator. And that's why I do what I do, because A, I do it different. People don't generally do it this way. I'm a little different all the time. Um, and I just feel it just feels better. It just feels more productive and better. And so that's why I'm opening up registration for the circle. And the circle is going to be a 3-month closed group. So once everyone's in at the end of next week, that's it. There's 8 to 10 spots open, and that's it. So it's a small group. And we will be doing 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So you get 3 weeks, 3 sessions a month. And the sessions are about 1.5 to 2 hours. And people think, oh my God, that's so long. But it's really not. Because if you've ever worked with me, we probably went over our time a little bit, because there's always so much to talk about. And the last time I did this, and I kind of tried to stick to the 1 hour model, that never really worked. It was always an hour and a half to 2. So I'm gonna be real. and be like, and by the time people got off, they were like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize it would took that long." Yeah, and it felt like it went like that. So that's why I'm doing it with that. And then also what'll happen is the sessions will be recorded. So if you either miss one or you want to go back and revisit because you're like, I really want to re-listen. I want to make sure I got what I was getting. And the meditations will be there for you as well. Those will be recorded. They'll be kept for you in an easy to access portal. Any sort of other, like, I like to call it like spiritual scripts, prescriptions or whatever. I'm not a doctor, I don't play one on TV, but I like to call them like prescriptions from spirit that, maybe come in the form of either worksheets or, here's a video to watch or something that seems relative to what we're talking about in the group. That's when I'll put stuff like that in there. There's a community that's not on Facebook that I've created that will be there as well for in between sessions, and especially that processing week between like 3 weeks on, 1 week off, to stay connected to the community. I think that's a big deal. Um, and I feel like that doing this work together is really going to be helpful because it helps you keep your inner critic in check when you're doing it. It keeps you from allowing our fear to get out of place, because the questions, like if you read lists of shadow questions on their own, they alone can be triggering. And if we're trying to do this work, if something starts to trigger you, you're going to be like, you know what? Nope. You know what I mean? And that's instead, when you're in a safe space, if something starts to trigger you, we kind of go, "Oh, okay, well let's hug on you and like talk about it and make sure that we can kind of maybe either figure that out or soften it up somehow by doing some energy work." Um and a lot of times, you might get like into trying to create a new habit and we don't stay accountable to keeping that habit. So it just works better in a facilitated group, in my opinion. That's just me. And so if this sounds like something you'd want to do, that stuff is open. There are links in the comments below. And I just wanted to say that that's the way I do shadow work. I don't do shadow work where we're talking incessantly about your childhood, about how this person or that person um, was mean to you. Stuff that, coaching is the difference, I think, a lot of times between coaching and therapy. Therapy gives you a place to have a voice. That's why I recommend those who have the big T trauma do therapy, because a lot of times in those situations, the reason stuff gets stuffed in the shadow closet, like really, really big and painful stuff gets stuffed in there, is because we're not allowed in this society to have a voice around those kinds of things. And so, because there's shame and blame and they're big. And so, therapy helps you give a voice to those things. And I think that that's wonderful. I've done it, it's great. I think that that helps immensely. Coaching is more about saying, you know what, this is where I was, this is what happened, it is what it is, and I'm going to move forward. And talking more about from the place of, okay, so there's a shadow in there. What am I going to do about it? That's much more, which is why I approach it in a very different way, and why I approach it from a space not of that kind of medical model, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a clinician. I am more of a spiritual guide and a spiritual coach. So I approach it from an energetic perspective. And that's why I love it, because it feels a lot more gentle. And it's the kind of little t trauma that we all have, which is like shit that gets in our way of our dreams. And so that's another thing. Like, y'all probably know me as a manifesting coach, which I still am. I still am a co-creative life coach. And this is just a facet. When we think about our spiritual journey, we cannot compartmentalize. Oh, that's manifesting. This is ghosts. That's crystals. And over here's shadow work. And oh, look, there's the Akasha. And like, it's not like aisles in the grocery store. Okay. It all flows together. Because here's the thing, when you do your shadow work, your itty bitty shitty committee quiets down because there's no more fuel for it. There's nothing in the closet to fuel it, which means when you decide you want to manifest something, when you set an intention, like a really good intention grounded in your values, in your spiritual, personal values, it has a more likely chance of manifesting when you clear away and you clean up the shadow closet. When we clean our shit up, that just makes our manifesting happen faster and better and more consistently. And it makes us more confident about everything. So, doing your shadow work, which is really just opening the closet and going through and decluttering and going through each item and saying, okay, what do I want to do with this? How can I process this? And what's the best way for me to process this? And who better to talk to than your guides, your higher self, and your shadow itself that's standing in front of the closet, kind of keeping it, holding it back, going, please, when are we gonna work together? When are we gonna work together? When are you gonna stop thinking I'm such an asshole and start realizing I am one of your besties and I love you? And the reason I'm holding this back is because I know you can't handle it right now. You were just trying to cope, and so you shoved it in here. And now I know there's too much crap in here, and we gotta start doing something or it's gonna bust out and be all over the place. And I love you, and I'm trying really hard to hold it closed, but I can't keep it closed forever. That's when you need to talk to your shadow. And that's what we do here. So that's the approach that I take. I take a much more energetic approach than a clinical approach because that's who I am. I would love to do that for you. And I think it is just such a much more gentle way to work with your light worker guides, your shadow guides, your higher self, source energy, doing meditations that feel gentle. The people that I've worked in the past, like once we're done, they're like, God, I feel so much lighter. I feel so much lighter. Or I can totally, like the people at work, they're still like jackwagons, but I don't react the same way I used to. And I feel a lot better about that. That's one comment that I got. And so I know that this stuff works. I know that doing it this way works. And that's why I want to put it out there. And this is the first time I'm opening it up to everybody in a group format like this, where most people can join. So here's the deal. So registration goes through Friday of next week. So right before Mercury retrograde starts or on the day of. So you might want to register before then if you're coming, because Mercury retrograde technology gets wonky. There's 3 ways to go. And you can check out the pricing. It's no big secret, but since I'm on video and I might use this video later, I'm just gonna say the pricing is in the links below, so you can go do that instead of trying to go through everything. But if you want to join me, there are 3 ways to join. The first way is the group experience, which is basically everything I said. You get your 3 sessions per month for 3 months. So you get 3 group sessions that are 1.5 to 2 hours long. So it's about nine sessions, and it could be up to like the equivalent of 18 sessions hourly if you're going to talk about, because most people run hour sessions. But anyway, so there's 9 sessions that can be an hour and a half to 2 hours long. You will have replays of all of them. Any digital content that's relevant, I'll share with you. And an online community that looks similar to Facebook, but it's not on Facebook. So you're not dealing with algorithms and other bullshit that will take your attention away from where it needs to be, which is focusing on your own alignment instead of aligning with what they want you to focus on. Um, and and then that group will meet for 3 months. Like I said, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So the first 3 weeks of the month is a session. You'll get a calendar for all this, and then 1 week will be off. And then the second choice is all of that plus a monthly private session. So you'd get one per month. So there'd be 3 1-hour sessions that are just for you each month. So you get, like, say, we start in May. So you'd have your group sessions and then one private session. And then June would be the group session and then one private session. So you get 3 private sessions, one per month plus your group. And then the third way to kind of join is, and both of those are a recurring monthly payment. Then the third choice is a taster. So you would pay a little bit more than the single month subscription, but you'd only get 1 month. Now, if you taste it and you're like, I love this, it's so yummy, I get everything in the group that I want at this other at the price that's just a little bit more than a monthly payment in the group only experience, but you only do 1 month to taste it. Now, at the end, if you're like, I love this so much and I want to be here for the other 2 months, you don't get the deal because you joined at the taster level. So you have to stay there all the way through, because it would be like you're doing 1 month at a time. So if you make the commitment to one of the other two, which is the 3 month group or the 3 month group plus tongue twister. I really should have thought that through. 3 month group plus single session per month. Those are subscriptions that are 3 payments. The taster is 1 payment. It's a little more expensive than the group. So, and if you join that and then decide later you want to keep going, it's at that same higher price. So just so you're aware, and you can check all the prices. I'm not trying to be cryptic, but if you go to the website, that are the links in the down here, it will show you how much everything is. So anyway, that's the deal. We're at 30 minutes and I don't want to keep anybody because I know it's if you're here with me live or you're watching on your own, I want to make sure I be mindful of your time. But that's really how I do shadow work. I do shadow work now in groups through energy meditation journeys and energy healing. And and the results are really, really great. Really great. Like it gives people food for thought and they come back later. And the thing is, at the end of the 3 months, if you still want to continue, we can do it again. So like we do this, and then the 3 months later, we're going to be doing Akashic Record journey, which is another variation of this type of journey. You just jump into maybe something that's in your shadow closet from a past life or something else. So, but that's interesting too. But right now we're talking about the circle. And so I encourage you to join. I would love to see you there with us. We actually start, this is really exciting. My favorite part is the very first one. If you're watching in April of 2023, this is the very first cohort, which we will be starting under a new moon. The week of that, the energy under that week of that first week of May is under a new moon with an eclipse, and it's all in, I believe, Scorpio, because what all that means is like, birth, death, rebirth, which is all like shadowy work. And it's a new moon, so we're starting intentions, but there's an eclipse. So it's like, what's under all of those intentions? It's all this great way to start the shadow work. It's going to be awesome. So I love that the cosmos is ready to push us off. And know that you're ready to join. And I am looking forward to seeing you sign up. So I will be sending out these replays next week if you are in April of 2023. And if you're watching at some point in the future, you're meant to see it. That's what I always say. The energy of this is there for when you're ready to connect to it. And so, whether it's 2023 or 2053, I might have gray hair and more wrinkles if that's the case when you see me in real life, if it's 2053. But, but the energy is there for you when you're ready to receive it. And that's why I say it doesn't matter what time or if it's like this week's reading or whatever, we connect when we're supposed to. And that's why I always know that my circles, I think somebody said that Michelle's circles always are the perfect people showing up in the perfect space at the perfect time to work together in the perfect way. And that's what I love about it because it's all source energy driven. I love that. So, anyways, I hope to see you in the circle. If you have questions, please let me know. You can message me. You can say hello below. You can send me an email, a private message, whatever you need that feels and you feel comfortable doing. If you have a question about this, a question about shadow work, a question about like if you'd rather do a fully private coaching kind of experience through this kind of thing, that's cool too. We can talk about that. But for right now, I would love to see you in the circle. I hope that we get to work together. It would be an honor to do so. And I look forward to seeing you there. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. And I hope this lesson series was helpful. And you can go back and watch the replays on YouTube. And I will be sending out emails next week with connection or links to the replays and some other juicy, yummy stuff. So if you don't have, if you're not on my email list, to make sure you don't miss out on my 3 steps that I like to do for shadow work in the moment with myself, and a meditation that I did with one of my groups before that was really lovely. Make sure you get on my email list, which if you go to this website right here, scroll its way to the bottom, you can join the email list and do that before next week so you can be on the email list and get all the goodies. Okay. Other than that, I will see you in the circle. Until next time, until I guess next time I pop on here for a live, I will see you in the vortex. Love you guys so much. Bye.